Hi guys. All right, so here we go. We're going to read chapter 14 today. Um, but before we start reading chapter 14 of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, let's review chapter 13 because that was a very strange chapter. So if you remember in chapter 13, Pierre and Ned and Council are getting ready to escape the ship. Well, they're getting ready to try to escape. They're putting their plan in place because they think they will be on the shore of Spain. So let's review this before we get into chapter 14. So in this chapter, Pierre was getting ready, like I said, to wait for the signal from Council and Ned for him to meet them, and they can go in a smaller boat and go ashore so that they could escape. During this time, while he's waiting and getting ready, he gets dressed for cold weather. He feels the boat at the bottom of the sea, like it's not at the surface for them to get on a smaller boat to escape. As he feels the boat at the bottom of the sea, Captain Nemo ends up coming in the room and asking him if he knew the history of Spain, which he thought was very strange. And then Captain Nemo opens the windows of the salon, and Pierre can see like tons of gold and treasures. And while he's telling him the history of Spain, he's talking to him about a shipwreck that had happened in the 1700s, and that they had tons of ships with golden treasures had sunk and fallen to the bottom of the water where they're at. I think they're in the Atlantic Ocean. And what he basically explains to Pierre is that this is where he keeps all of his golden treasures that he finds on his journeys and expeditions. And all of a sudden he starts getting really upset, and he's asking Pierre these questions like, don't you think I know that people are hungry in the world and cold, and don't you think I know that it's not fair that I have these riches and that people don't? How do you know that I don't make good use of them? So through this conversation, Pierre realizes that everywhere they stop in the world, Captain Nemo, or on this journey that he's been on with him, Captain Nemo is giving back to these communities and to these people that don't have a lot. He is giving them money to help them survive, and like I said, giving back to them. So Pierre realizes that this man that he thought hated mankind really is probably the best person in the world, and that he really is helping people with all the treasures of the sea. So now let's read chapter 14 and see if they talk about maybe their relationship getting better with Captain Nemo. Maybe they'll bring up that they feel trapped and they're ready to leave. But let's see what happens. So chapter 14 is called A Walk in the Rain. The next morning, the 19th of February, Ned entered my room. I expected this visit. He looked very disappointed. Well, sir, he said. Well, Ned, we lost the chance again, I said. I tried to act disappointed for his sake. Yes, Ned said. The captain decided to stop at exactly the time we planned on leaving his ship. I know, he had business at his bankers. His bankers, Ned explained. Exclaimed. Well, I guess I could say his special spot. By that I mean the ocean bed. His riches are safer there than in the chests on land. Then I told Ned about last night. I was hoping he would change his mind about leaving the ship. Instead, he just showed disappointment that he had not been able to take a walk on the battlefield of Vigo himself. Well, never mind about last night, said. We still have tonight. What direction is the Nautilus going? I asked. I don't know, Ned replied. We'll have to find out at noon. Ned returned to council. I dressed and went to the saloon. The direction on the compass wouldn't please Ned. We were turning our backs on Europe. For myself, I was not really sorry. I was able to return to my work with some level of calmness. That night at about 11 o'clock, I received an unexpected visit from Captain Nemo. He asked if I would like to see the ocean underworld at night. That would be scary. I warn you, the way will be tiring. We shall have far to walk, and we will have to climb a mountain. The roads are not well kept. Well, it's the bottom of the ocean. I didn't have to think long. I'm ready. We dressed in our diving suits with help of crew members. I noticed this was a walk for the captain and me alone. I thought briefly about how angry Ned would be that he once again hadn't been invited on an adventure. But I didn't have time to worry over that. In a few moments, we were ready. It's probably why Ned is so upset about being there. He's never invited to do anything. He's always trapped in his room. Where are electric lamps? I asked. They will be useless, the captain replied. I didn't think I had heard him right, but I couldn't question him. The captain's head disappeared into the metal case. With a few more snaps and pulls, the two of us were both walking on the bottom of the Atlantic. It was almost midnight and the waters were very dark, but the captain pointed out in the distance a reddish spot about 2 miles from the Nautilus. I had no idea what it was or why it was there. I only knew we were heading towards it. As we walked, I could hear a pattering above my head. It took me a moment to figure out the sound. Rain. It was rain hitting the waves hard in the middle of a storm. I couldn't help but laugh at the odd idea. We continued on. I noticed the soil becoming stony. The red light in the distance became brighter. I tried to make stories up in my mind for where we were going. I could tell Captain Nemo had traveled this path often. I followed him. I knew he would get us there safely. It was 1 a.m. when we arrived at the first slopes of the mountain. But to get to them, we had to climb over an area of dead trees. These trees, which had no leaves or sap, had toppled over. They were mixed with seaweed and other ocean life and seemed impossible to pass. I followed my guide, who never seemed to get tired. We climbed rocks and used a stick to jump over cracks and holes. 2 hours after leaving the Nautilus, we had crossed the line of trees and saw the top of the mountain 100 feet above our heads. The signs of ocean life around me made my blood run cold. There were giant lobsters moving their claws towards us. Huge crabs pointed at us like guns. Large antennae blocked our way, making me feel as if I were where I didn't belong. When we made it through, we were on the first platform. The sights before me were surprising. Everything was man-made instead of natural. Kind of like a lost city. Oh, look at me. There were huge piles of rock shaped like castles and temples. Instead of ivy seaweed, there were vegetable plants. But what was this place? Who put these stones there? Where had Captain Nemo brought me? We continued to the top. I looked down the side we had just climbed. My eyes looked over a large lit up space. In fact, the mountain was a volcano. This peak was spitting out red hot lava in the rain of stones and liquid. The area was lit up like a torch. I followed the mass of red with my eyes, watching it as it fell below. What I saw made me shake my head. There, destroyed and ruined, lay a town. Its roofs were open to the sky, and its temples had fallen. There were sunken walls, empty streets, and ports that had once held ships on the borders of the ocean. Where was I? I had to know. I tried to speak, but Captain Nemo stopped me with the wave of his, well, let me let you look at this picture for a second. Look how cool that is. And there they are looking at this lost city. Let's see. But Captain Nemo stopped me with a wave of his hand. He picked up a piece of chalk stone, walked to a black rock, and traced one word, Atlantis. I knew it. I couldn't believe what I read. Atlantis, the ancient continent of the Atlantic Ocean. Could it be? This continent was said to have sunken away under sea because of a huge volcano, but no one had ever found it. In fact, many people believe it never even existed in the first place. But if it did, and maybe it does, I knew Captain Nemo would be the one to find it. Either way, I knew I was looking at a very old city. I walked through the place, touching ruins 1,000 generations old. I tried to fix in my mind every detail of the great landscape. I looked toward Captain Nemo. He was leaning on a mossy stone, standing very still. He was dreaming of those men long since was he dreaming of those men long since disappeared? What wouldn't I give to know his thoughts right then? We stayed in this place for an hour. I memorized the land under the bright lava and trembling beneath my feet. Even the sound would stay with me forever. I would never forget what Captain had shared with me. I think this was my favorite chapter so far. I love the story of the lost city of Atlantis. I've even watched the movie. It's like a cartoon movie. But this was a great chapter. It's just so strange how secretive Captain Nemo is, but then he takes Pierre on these like amazing adventures, and it's like he's keeping him here. I wish he would just say like, I'm not trapping you, I want you to stay, something like that, so we wouldn't think like that he was a crazy person. But I guess as we read on, I mean, there's only 5 chapters left. Maybe we'll find out some more information about him, and maybe he'll let them go, or at least Ned and Council go. They're so lonely, and it's really just not a place for them. But I guess we'll find out. And we will read chapter 15, 16, and 17 next week.